understandably, everybody, especially from a brand standpoint, has this goal of being like the next Nike or the next Yeti or whatever it is. And hey, like, don't get me wrong, like I would take that every day of the week, but
Yeah.
realistically, it's that's a pretty big mountain to climb.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hassman, and joining me today is a brand new rock star. I'm super excited to dive in today. He's an agency leader, a former junior hockey play-by-play announcer, a veteran of the brand strategy and creation and execution who believes that great marketing is as much about discipline and accountability as it is about big ideas. Jared Harman, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks. It's a great intro. I'm going to use that.
Love it. I love it. Well, so I want to dive in because you grew up in a family that started restaurant chains and you spent 10 years leading a major agency. So what's like the most important business lesson you learned early that still shapes how you operate today?
I honestly, failure is okay. Like it's I think that's like a general kind of entrepreneurial slogan that, like, sometimes you're going to fail. Not every idea is gonna land, and unfortunately, sometimes living that through experience can be a little bit tough and painful. But I think the key, and it's a little bit of a cliche, but it's so true, is that, as long as you learn from those failures and kind of learn how to move past them and understand them for how you move forward, I think that can make a huge difference in lining up success in the future.
Yeah, man. It's funny because I think so much of culture is trying so hard, whether it's education or whatever, trying to avoid that failure, that it's like
Totally.
those of us who are willing to, I've certainly had my share, but lean into going, hey, it's okay. If we learn from it, we'll be all right. So dude, I buy that completely. Um, so you also talk about brands sort of losing their message as campaigns travel across channels. I'm interested in this because why do you think that happens? And what does a brand do to make sure the message stays tight no matter where it shows up?
I think just overthinking the messaging and the strategy, especially when you're looking at different channels and trying to perfect each one. And what you're really doing when you do that is just overcomplicating the message. And, I think understandably, everybody, especially from a brand standpoint, has this goal of being like the next Nike or the next Yeti or whatever it is. And hey, like, don't get me wrong, like I would take that every day of the week, but
Yeah.
realistically, that's a pretty big mountain to climb. So I think, trying to get to that point and understanding that, hey, sometimes simple is better, and making sure that there's a consistent elements that people can identify with your brand, no matter what channel it's on. So that, because what you're really trying to obtain, and like what the Nikes and those brands do, is that, like, no matter where you see their content or their messages, right away who it is. And I think
Yeah.
that's the goal, right? And sometimes when you overthink those things and how you're presenting them, you, without even realizing, you'll move away from that. And next thing you know, you're doing things differently on TikTok than you are on Instagram, and people just get confused, and before you know it, you've lost your audience.
Yeah. Dude, I completely have fallen victim to this, right? Because I think that we forget that somebody's got to hear this stuff so many times before it starts to even break through the noise. That I think some of the people that I follow, I'm often fascinated by the fact that they say the same things over and over again, and I keep watching.
Yeah,
You know what I
totally.
mean?
Yeah,
And
well,
I
it's
don't
like
want to do it.
yeah, it's that subtle messaging too, though. You get to a point where, like, if you look at like Nike ads these days, like, and I keep using them because they're one of the best at it, but you don't even know what they're selling anymore, like half the time, right? Like, are they selling the shorts? Or are they selling the shoes? Like, are they selling the golf clubs? Whatever it is, and it's because you just know, like, you're just so familiar with that brand and that, the style and what they've portrayed, that you know exactly what you're watching when you see it. So I think, like, that's a pretty ambitious goal, but I think, again, just kind of dumbing it down to simplifying the message and the strategy and the approach so that people will resonate with it across channels will go a long way.
Yeah, I love that. Now, you spent a decade in junior hockey marketing and have managed major sports facilities. I think that's interesting. So, how has that shaped the way you think about brand activation and creative execution?
Again, I think it all comes down to audience and, like, understanding, the different people that are going to be looking at your product or service or whatever it is you're selling. I think, for me, it's a very natural analogy, but sports and coaching it really come into play because everybody on your team is different. When you're the coach of a team, I know I'm getting away from the facility side or the play-by-play side a little bit, but when you're the coach of a team, you've got to manage every player differently, right? And
Yeah.
the one player that responds well to kid gloves you got to handle that person differently than the player that wants to get yelled and screamed at, right? And from a marketing standpoint and a messaging standpoint and how you approach your audience, it's the same thing. Like you've got to find a way, like unless you're in like the most niche industry in the world where you're only selling to 35-year-old men of a certain affluence or whatever, like you've got to be able to create messaging that appeals to everybody. And so I think utilizing the event approach where, hey, like how do we make this fun and exciting for everybody to want to participate, it's kind of the same thing. The only difference is the participation in this case is purchasing or conversions, right?
Yeah. And I will say I'm seeing a lean back into experiential and event marketing too. So that kind of, I know that's not exactly what you were talking about, but it makes me think of that because I do think people are longing for that just experience,
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, we always, tell our clients it's always about relatability and understanding, right? So like you have to, and I think that's why, to your point about the experiential marketing is coming back, is because it's the best way to do it. You put it in people's hands, right? Like, and make them, touch and feel it or, taste it depending on what it is. And that's just going to go so much further than like seeing a commercial play, in your Instagram feed or on your TV, whatever it is. Right. And I think giving them real experience will make a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that. All right, final question. So 10 years you've been leading an agency. So what do you know about accountability and operations inside a creative business that most people you think get wrong?
Oh, I for the first 9 of 10 years, we had like zero infrastructure, which was like not a good thing. And I think that's a big thing, is making sure you put the right systems in place to be successful and to operate properly. But the one that I lean heavy on is customer service and building actual relationships. And I'm not sure if that is a direct answer to the question, but like, I think with technology the way it is and the opportunity for digital communications with everybody, people have lost sight of like, hey, what real, face-to-face interaction and conversation can do for building your business. And we've really almost relied exclusively on referral business and just the relationships. Like we don't spend a lot of time or energy marketing ourselves because that's not going to tell people who we are and what we do. And the reality of it is, no matter what business you're in, there's a lot of very good opportunities and people out there doing the same thing. So you've got to find ways to connect, and that's through relationships.
Yeah, I am fascinated by that because we are living through this. I always think that like when everybody is zigging, it's important to zag. And so when you're thinking about the idea of like, oh, we got to do TikTok and we got to do this, it's like, if you just go shake somebody's hand, it actually still does make a big difference.
Oh, man, it's huge. I used to like going back to the hockey stuff when I first started, I was selling rink boards, and like I always joked that like a lot of people who were buying those rink boards didn't want to give them up or say no because they saw some young kid at their office trying to earn a living, and they just made a connection with me, and they're like, like we don't really need the rink board, but like Jared's a nice guy and we don't want to disappoint him, so we'll do the deal. And then then they keep that. And like I honestly, like the minute I left, half the sponsors left, and I think there's just so much value in that relationship, right?
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. This has been great, Jared. I really appreciate it, and I think it's interesting when we marketers start going, hey, old school still works, right? Like, totally. So it's great to hear that from you. So real quick, where can people find more information about you?
The best place is honestly just our website, onegroupagency.ca. That'll lead you down whatever rabbit hole you want to go and directly to me or the team. And I really appreciate having me on. And it's always fun talking about the business.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been fun. We'll have to do it again. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. That's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.